Hey everyone, I'm Stephanie, and I believe that the right book at the right time can change lives, and that all readers should read children's literature, especially adults. So, that's what we do here on the KidLit Love podcast. We celebrate all things children's literature: picture books, early readers, middle grade, and young adult novels for readers of all ages. In each episode, we'll talk with children's literature authors and discuss their books, their hopes, their dreams for readers, their writing process, and much, much more. Whether you're an adult reading to their inner child or connecting the young readers in your life with fantastic books, you've come to the right place. So grab a notebook to build your TBR, and let's get to today's episode of KidLit Love. Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the KidLit Love podcast. I'm Stephanie Affinito, your KidLit loving host, inviting you back to another bookish conversation with a children's literature author. Today, I'm talking with Brittany Pomales. Brittany is here to talk about her debut picture book. It's called It Started with a P, and it is a hilarious read aloud that is full of fun alliteration, where a young king decides on the morning of his birthday that everything with the letter P must go. I can't wait to introduce you to Brittany and her brand new picture book, so let's get right to the episode. Brittany, welcome to KidLit Love. I am so glad you're here today.
Hi, Stephanie. So excited to be on.
Congratulations on your debut.
Thank you, thank you. Still, all a bit in shock, I guess you could say.
Yeah. I love these episodes. It is my favorite to talk to debut authors. There's just a different, I would say not different, a heightened level of excitement and just passion for it because it's the first time listeners get to read one of your books and likely meet you. For many of our listeners, this is likely the first time that they are hearing about you because your book is so new. And so I'd love to start with good old-fashioned introductions. If you could tell us a bit about you and your background and your journey through children's literature that got you here today.
Sure. So like Stephanie had said in the intro, I am Brittany Pomales, and my debut book, It Started with a P, just came out earlier this month. And it is a humorous picture book, so I write funny for littles. And I have been on this journey of publication for 8 years. Fortunately, not all with this story, but you learn as you go. So I've rooted myself pretty deeply. I have been a PB party judge for the past 2 years, and I host KidLit HaHa Week, which is a event where you sort of can learn some craft on writing humor picture books, middle grade and YA. So that's most of my writing nutshell. And then at home, I am a mom of two littles, one 2-year-old and one 4-month-old. Um, so that's me.
Oh my goodness, Brittany, you are busy. And this is the perfect. I mean, mom is publishing funny picture books that she can read at home. That will be exciting once they realize how amazing that is later.
Yeah, they're a little young for my audience as of yet, which is funny to say, but I did start writing pre-children. I know for some writers it's the other way around.
Hmm. Yeah, you're right. It's like a half and half. Some kind of allow themselves to go back to that writing dream when their kids get into that beautiful age where they love picture books. But as you said, you've been in it for a little while, and I would love, before we talk about your book, I want to ask you about Picture Book Haha Week because that is a new thing for me, and I want to know more about it.
Sure. So when I decided to just get into humor, I started writing SEL because a lot of the picture book writing courses are geared towards that, which is totally fine, but I wasn't having success with writing it. It just my manuscripts were missing something, they weren't resonating. So I think it was maybe the third year trying out for PB Chat's mentorship. I decided that I was going to try submitting a humor story to the humor mentors that were there that year. And I realized if I was going to be a humor author, then maybe I needed more than one humor manuscript. So I started really diving into the craft at that point of writing funny picture books because it's different than writing other types of picture books, right? Your lyrical versus your social emotional versus your nonfiction. And after that mentorship, my mind was opened, but there still isn't that much out there for writing humor picture books specifically. And so I kind of waited a little bit and hoping that other entities would create these things that I wanted out there. And then after a few years, like Writing Barn had done something for 2 years and then stopped. And after they stopped those 2 years, I was like, no, I can't have that void back. I need it filled. I really need it
Mhm.
filled. So I then created KidLit HaHa Week, which is it runs April 1st through the 5th, regardless of what year, because it times with the beginning of Humor Month, and then also April 1st is April Fool's Day. And there is one guest blogger every day that is, in my mind, an expert um, in writing an aspect for children's books. So they may be an author, an illustrator. I try and get one editor every year because I know that editing funny is a different skill set than writing funny. So I have that coming up every year. We just had it earlier this month, and the next year will be our third year. And I've already got sort of the blogger list. I'm getting people solidified as we speak.
Wow. I love how this was born, that you immersed yourself in this particular craft, this particular genre, and didn't want that community, that support, that information to go away. And so no one else did it. So you filled that need. I love the origin story of that.
And it's free. So, like, I know if you pay for like a humor course, sometimes it might come with a hefty fee. These blog articles live on my site all year round. So, eventually, there'll be a nice, good chunk of information there. And like I said, it's free.
Yeah, even better.
Yeah.
Now, when you think of writing humorous books, do you have your own kind of personal mentors that you think about that really helped in your mind pave the way for launching your debut?
So I have like further back, right? If I
Mhm.
go to like my TV icons from
Yes.
from where I started to get my humor and then specifically going into like picture books after. But my humor true north for me is like I Love Lucy,
Oh,
even
yeah.
though younger me is still younger than the original audience. But I'm gonna like mess up the actual quote, but I know that she said that even though you're writing humor, you have to treat your audience like they're smart, right? Because
Uh-huh.
if you try and get lazy with your writing, your audience will notice and you'll lose your audience. And I really value that because it shows there's a cleverness in the series, and I tried to capture some of that cleverness in my story, which is why there's so many layers. Like
Yeah.
when you catch the reveal, it's like an aha because it's smart. You're like, oh, that's so clever, or at least I hope that's the reaction that I
Mhm.
get. And it is the reaction I got on my most recent story time. So I was like, yes, good, this it's working. And then also I watched a lot of Abbott and Costello with my dad, and
Uh-huh.
so that back and forth between King Liam and Cedric, his royal advisor, is a bit of that banter back and forth. And then as I got into the picture book writing world, there's just a few of those funny people like Dev Petty, who was my mentor for PB Chat mentorship. And then you have so many greats. So I feel bad saying names, but you've got Tara Lazar, you've got Tammy Sauer, if I said her last name right, um, and many many others, and many that are up and coming, like
Yeah.
Rachel Wilson and How to Pee Your Pants the Right Way, and my lovely friend Elaine Crane, who's got There's Something Odd About the Babysitter coming out in June. So there's just so much inspiration when it comes to writing funny picture books, new
Yes.
and old.
Yes. Oh, I love that. I love asking that question because I can hear the excitement in your voice, right from I Love Lucy to dropping the names of those authors. I just love when people in general, but especially authors, of course, talk about the craft and the books and the authors they love. It just, oh, it lights me up. And I so remember watching that chocolate conveyor belt episode of I Love Lucy with my grandmother, thinking I was going to pee my pants. So Oh, I love
There's
it.
there's so much good there, and the thing is it was family friendly, so you can absolutely mine it for ideas for your own stories. It's harder when you're doing that and watching some of, like, the more adult sitcoms today because the humor is not that same. It's not. In fact, Lucy is childish, right? So even though they're all adults, the humor, it very easily translates to children.
Yes. Oh, well, let's get to the book. Let's talk about It Started with a P. Tell us, give us the overview a little bit, right, for listeners who perhaps this book is brand new for. And I'd love to hear about the inspiration behind this particular title too.
Okay. So it started with a P, involves a young king who has a nightmare the night before his birthday that something is going to ruin his birthday, but for the life of him can't remember what it is, except for the fact that it started with the letter P. And since having his birthday ruined is not very royal like, he gets rid of everything that starts with the letter P at all costs. So pants, pizza, presents, people, and eventually ends up all by himself on a desert island when he comes to realization of what that P was and sort of sets many things in the book right, but not everything gets reset.
Yeah, and this is when it's so hard because you want to say everything, yet you don't want to spoil the fun for the reader who is going to pick up that book next. But yeah, so the palace has to go, right? The presents have
Yep.
to go. The party has to go. The pants
Yeah.
go too. And even the princess, the sister princess. Except the royal advisor gets to stay because that's A. So I just loved the fun with thinking about, oh my goodness, how many things have to go and what is going to be left, especially once the pants start coming off, Brittany.
Yeah, right. How do you escalate from there? And even when all the people go, you're like, well, how do you escalate from there? Oh well, friends, there is a way.
Yeah.
We escalate even further. So
Yeah. It really is delightful. It's a book where you are laughing out loud. I can picture kids leaning in to see what's happening next, to start generating all of the P words they could think of that might have to go. This is where my educator brain kicks in and thinks, "Ooh, I could ask the students this, we could do that, we could do this." There are so many places I think the kids are just going to be so engaged in what's happening and wondering what's going to happen. And as you said, then there's that pivotal moment where things kind of rewind or go back, which is exciting to see it come back together as well. I love the structure, right, that you have put into that to really make the reader go on that ride full circle.
yeah, that came with time. At first, way back for my picture book writers who know that it takes usually many, many drafts. Um, it ended with him on the island, and it just didn't have that same satisfaction as it now does that we go back and sort of not only get things back to a bit more of a calmer state, but then, we even have a last gag there at the end. So
Yeah.
definitely took a bit of work and also my village, right? It took other people helping me with critiques and edits to get us from the island to how it ends now. So from the island back to the palace, essentially.
Okay, that fascinates me to know that it ended, originally had a different ending because that ending is perfect. Wow. So say more about, that village and that process. Your first picture book, although as you said, lots of years, lots of ideas, lots of drafts, I imagine. What is that process or what did that process look like for you in It Started with a P?
It started with a P was the first humor manuscript I wrote, not this version, of course. And I was not up to the task. So I wrote a first draft. I had my critique group take a look at it. And then they gave me their thoughts, wonderful thoughts. And I was like, whoa, hold our horses. We are not there yet. And I put it in a drawer for a year. Didn't touch it, didn't look at it. Then when as I had mentioned a little bit earlier, had applied with a different story to the PB chat mentorship, I realized I needed more than one humor manuscript, and I pulled this out of the drawer and started to sort of dust it off. I sent it over to Rate Your Story because I like using their speed pass for just kind of quick critique and also like from somebody in the industry. So I sent it their way, not looking for a one or a two telling me to submit, just sort of a, do I have something here? Should I dig deeper? Like what's going on? And they, I fell right in that middle saying that, polish this up. It's got something going, which is what I was looking for. And they gave me a really good suggestion because at that point there was no party. My P's were sort of running amok. There was no there was no organization to it. So they said, it would probably do better if you had some structure to what these items. And that was totally on ball. I added a party, which mm, helped lean into even more P items
Mhm.
because parties just naturally lend themselves to P items like presents and piñatas. And then at that point, since I was working on it, then I really leaned into my village because Rate Your Story gave me that little bit of boost that I should continue to work on it. I did secure that mentorship with PB Chat, which is now defunct. It doesn't exist. It was with Justin Cologne, but PB Rising Stars um, does have a mentorship. They kind of came up where he left off. So there's still options out there for those who are listening and going, "Oh no, that mentorship doesn't exist." There's still another one there. Um, and so she helped me with the story, and then after that, I even got more help, so not just my critique partners, but I was trying to polish it, so my agent came into the fold, and we worked out a little bit, and then even after it was sold, it changed a lot from my editor, Claire, getting it, because originally there's so many originals, so I'm sorry. Originally, King Liam was an adult, so it sold with him being an adult king, and during the process of us editing, we turned him into a young king, which actually didn't change too much in the story, other than the princess becoming his sister versus his daughter. And the the big reveal changed. It was completely something different. It was all funny and no heart, and now we have this lovely emotional layer that came through by just that nudge from my editor saying, this spot isn't really working as is. Let's see what else we can come up with. And just giving me that extra push to really, really run with it. Because sometimes it's hard to make big changes sometimes when everything else already feels pretty solidified. You're like, oh, if I pull this one thread, like everything could unravel. Fortunately, everything did not unravel. But sometimes it's nice to have a little bit of encouragement, like pull on the string, pull on the string. So
Yeah.
that's the journey. That's part of the village because there's a lot of critique partners and things we could be shouting about villages all day.
Yeah, I've said it so many times on the podcast when I listen to author stories that this kidlit space is just some of the kindest, most generous, open-hearted people who just want everybody to tell their stories and everybody to enjoy them. It's such a beautiful space.
Absolutely. Would definitely not be at this point without that space, without
Mhm.
having everyone and everything that has led up to it.
Yeah. Now, you mentioned the emotional piece in the book, and I'd love to go there because, at its core, this is a hysterical, funny story full of alliteration that is going to get kids engaged and get them giggling and get them into the book. But there's also this layer, and I know you mentioned SEL books earlier too, but there's this theme of big emotions, right? This king has some emotions. He's got a fear, he's trying to remember, and he kind of just goes over the deep end of throwing all of the peas out. And so I'd love for you to talk a little bit more about that emotional piece, perhaps those deeper themes that this book might touch upon too as readers are engaging with it.
Sure. It's nice that it has humor at the over because then if the emotional themes don't really resonate, then it's fine. You just sort of gloss right over them.
Right.
But if
That's
they
a great
do,
point. Yeah, that's a great
yeah.
point.
But if they do, King Liam has some. I guess you can say anxious thoughts because he
Mhm.
has that dream and he doesn't let it go, right? He goes to the point of getting rid of all the peas instead of brushing it off that it was just a dream, as some people could. So you have sort of the thoughts that won't let go. You also have a bit of how he handles those thoughts. He doesn't exactly stop to examine. He just sort of bull in a china shop decides he's going
Yes.
to go and get rid of everything, which essentially breaks the party, right? You can't have a party without people presence and all that. So, and then ultimately having to realize what he did and trying to make it right, which is another emotional piece, right? Sort of owning up to your actions.
Yes.
Um, and then not only owning up to your actions, but realizing his part um, in it all from the beginning. So
Mhm. Yeah,
there's a lot. And there's probably more that I don't even realize is there.
well, that's the beauty of it. That is the beauty of books in general, which is whatever the reader needs, the reader will find. And as you said, it could just be a really fun, funny story that children are going to enjoy with a caregiver and just have a couple of laughs in a wonderful moment. Or it could also be something more as these emotional or these little, I guess, little life lessons, so to speak, that are good for kids. And I know a lot of adults that could benefit from learning from King Liam myself.
Yes. I definitely have my own King Liam moments, of course, fortunately, not to that degree. So that's definitely where a lot of that stemmed from is some of my own flaws sneaking into my writing.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's what makes it so relatable is because we all, we all have things in our personalities and our lives that could trigger us or give us a little, I love what you said, a bull in a china shop kind of thing where we just want to figure it out. And this is a good reminder that sometimes the breath and taking a pause can be a better choice. Maybe not as fun or funny, but it could be a good one.
But there's space for all of it. There's space for the funny and there's space for the pause.
That's
So
right. Now, I'd love to mention the illustrations. These are light and fun and funny. Andrew Joyner has really complemented your words and the craft and the structure of this so well. And I'd love for you to talk about the book from the perspective of the illustrations and what you think.
yeah, he did a phenomenal job. It's interesting how almost every page you feel like it can like start moving or pop off the
Yes.
page, which is really hard to do because this is static images, right? It's not moving pictures. We're not animating it. So it's hard when I have so much energy and chaos going on in the pictures to capture it. And I felt immediately bad about that to whoever got the book. I was like, they're gonna have to illustrate so much. But he did so well, better if I mean not like he of course he's been around, he's been illustrating for years, but I mean in my mind, because I can only fathom so much, I'm not artistically inclined. But I was just blown away. I was like, "Wow, like, you can really it's all there." Like, you the movement's there, the chaos is there, it's all there.
Yeah, it really is. And then there's some hidden things too, right? Are there some things
Yeah.
that readers can look for? Please talk about that.
The hidden things were something I hoped could happen, but it wasn't specifically written, right? So it was not written on the manuscript. It was not written in the query because you usually don't wanna tell people how to potentially tie things into the book, but I kind of hoped it would feel almost like a seek and find in certain areas. So I was very thrilled when it came across that way naturally, specifically in the scene where they're getting all the people onto paddle boats. So all the people on the pier, but all their pets are being um, put on the boats too. But they're not described in the text. So it just says, sort of the people and their pets, and if you look, you'll sort of see like penguins and poodles. And so you'll see different animals that are pea related that aren't in the text. So it's fun there looking. And then as you look throughout in general, if I list every pea in a normal palace, we might have a lot extra, like paintings and things like that. So it's kind of nice to go through and look at other peas that aren't mentioned. um,
Mhm.
because just in some cases, there's naturally extra items with PE and then some that were specifically placed.
Yeah. And that's where I can see educators, librarians, parents, caregivers really having fun with this book, doing that seek and find and finding them and brainstorming even more together and just making it a whole P experience, which doesn't come out right when I say it, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, absolutely. And it definitely took a lot of eyes to even get there because originally in Andrew's first sketches, Cedric's underwear had polka dots, which starts with a P, and it's like, ironically, I didn't catch it at first, so I've just looked at everything sort of overall, and I was like, "Oh my goodness, mind blown, like, these look great," and then I had to really look in deeper because built a very specific world that has specific rules, and I had to follow those rules, in this case, making sure that no peas are sort of left on the people that were there, so the polka dots couldn't be there because his underwear needed to be like safe for in the letter P world, right? So they were easily changed to hearts because polka dots are similar in shape. There was easy to get it changed to hearts, and even like King Liam in the initial sketches, his cape was purple, so that had to change to red to avoid that P. So
Oh my goodness. I never would have thought of that. Thinking, yeah, at the level of detail you needed, but the fact that the underwear and polka dots and would have to go just really is making me happy right now.
yeah, like I said, a very specific world that was created and then had to be maintained, right? We had to follow those rules because, as I mentioned with the I Love Lucy, your audience is smart and you have to
Right.
treat them that way. Even though people might think writing for children is easy, it's not. Your audience is really, really smart. Their brain is growing. Like, I don't even know the rate because I'm not in that profession, but they're so smart, so you have to treat it that way. And so polka dots wouldn't fly because I guarantee you, as an author of reading,
Mhm.
I
Oh,
would have
you know
definitely had a hand fly up and be like, "Excuse me, ma'am, those are polka dots."
it. Oh, I want to make sure that I mention the end pages too, because you love end pages like I love end pages.
Yes.
And talk about those. They're so good.
Originally, I had the ending in mind that the last page currently has. He nailed it, but I know that other suggestions had been like, well, let's figure out what happens to that last item
Yep.
that's sort of in the twist. And originally we had thought, okay, maybe we'll just have it all dumped on an island or things. And that was beyond. And when we ended up pacing it out, that didn't fit in. It ended naturally on what I had originally had just because of what fit. And I was like, okay, that's fine. It never bothered me to begin with to find out where all those items went, right?
Mhm.
So it didn't bother me at all. But then I was like surprised because if you look at the first set of end pages at the beginning, you'll sort of see pizzas and the piranhas and the pigeons, and you'll even see a penguin in there. And then when you flip to the end, you now see that extra item that sort of gets tossed at the end,
Mhm.
and you'll see that now like the penguin has a party hat on, and I was just so seeing the penguin with the party hat and that item, which
Yes.
is in the bottom left corner, I loved it so much that I finally understood the quote that Maurice Sendak had said, that he had signed a little image for, at least I think it's Maurice Sendak. He signed a little image for a kid, and the kid loved it so much he ate it, didn't care that it was like a big name, and the image was one of a kind. He just loved it so much he ate it. And I, of course, thought that was cute. But then I had gotten these, luckily digitally, because I had finally understood that moment. And I was like, these are so great that I want to eat it.
I want to eat them. Yes.
So I finally understood, but fortunately it was digitally and no paper was harmed in the process.
Oh, I love it. As you think about this book, these illustrations, these end papers, all the wonderful things going out into the world to readers, what is your hope? What is your hope for the book? What is your hope for the readers? What are you thinking?
I know that it is so hard to get books in the right hands nowadays because there's
Mhm.
so many books out there. And marketing isn't remotely what it used to be. And I think the biggest hope is that it actually gets into those hands, because I can see so much with this book. Like you already mentioned about the school potential, which wasn't after like a happy accident. I was writing, humor was always the goal. Everything else just was a bonus and cherries on top. But it goes nowhere if it doesn't get to the readers, right? So I'm just
Right.
hoping that it gets into those schools. I'm hoping it gets into those libraries. I'm hoping that it moms and dads and grandparents see it and pick it up so that their kids can enjoy it. And my biggest hope is that it gets to them, that I it's for them. I hope it gets to them. Yeah.
It has to. It's just that fun and that wonderful. People will make sure it finds their way to their loved ones for sure. It's wonderful. Now, where can readers find you? Where can listeners find you so that they can learn more about you or the book or the Picture Book Haha Week? Where is the best place?
Sure. My corner of the world that, is sort of unchanging is my website, which is just my name. So it's brittanypomales.com. And that is great because it has um, sort of any events that I have coming up. If any librarians or teachers are looking for author events that I'm hoping to do starting this new school year, so fall of 2025, that will be there. And there's a lot of potential with alliteration and tongue twisters. So I'm excited about those. And with social media constantly changing, like that's probably
Yeah.
the go-to. And then for social media wise, I am mostly on X because that's just where I had started. And then Instagram has been sort of where the most book related stuff has landed, just because I think visually I've
Yeah.
now had a lot of art to share. So it's lent itself really well for that. But as time goes on, it's hard to say which place would be the best. But I would say out of all of them, those two would be the easiest ways to get me or see what's going on with me in the book.
Okay. I will make sure to put those links in the show notes so that listeners can get to them easily. But I want to mention to listeners, and I'm hoping you can touch upon this too, because we have educators who listen, librarians who listen, and also children's book authors who are trying to get that first published. And I know you have some resources for them on your website too, right? Can you just mention that so they know what they could also find?
Yeah, absolutely. I have KidLit HaHa Week lives on my site all year round. So even though the event is live April 1st through the 5th, you can go back and see both 2025 and 2024's articles up there. So that means in total there's now 10 and they're free. They are geared toward KidLit writers, but there's a lot of information in there. So if you're just looking for, if you're mining it because maybe you're a librarian or a teacher that you're trying to um, dissect maybe one of the books, for example, like Dev Petty has an article in there about writing all in dialogue, and she writes a lot in dialogue. So if you're doing a segment or a lesson on writing in dialogue, that might be a great article to take a look at, even though you yourself are not a writer hoping to publish a dialogue only picture book. So that's definitely a great place. And then, it'll just grow as the years go by.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you so much for coming on to talk about your book. I'm so excited to share in the release of your debut, and I can't wait to follow Picture Book Haha Week and see eventually what you have up your sleeve next.
Awesome, Stephanie. Thank you so much for having me.
Of course. And listeners, thank you for listening to another episode of KidLit Love, and I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for listening to today's episode of the KidLit Love podcast. You'll find links to all of the books, resources, and ideas mentioned in the show notes and at alitlife.com. You'll also find KidLit Love on Substack. That's where you'll find posts for each episode, monthly KidLit roundups, and an invitation to join my summer book club and go deeper into the world of children's literature. And if you loved this podcast and want more, you might like to listen to my other podcast called Get Literate. It's a podcast that explores all things books and reading, notebooks and writing to build a life you love. One more thing. If you love what you listened to today, please take a moment to rate and review the podcast or take a screenshot of the episode. and text it to a friend. This helps the podcast grow and builds our bookish community of KidLit Love. Thanks for listening.